I read a book that changed my life, and it wasn't it wasn't Anna and the French Kiss. It was this book by Christine Seifert. It outlines tropes around sex and romance within young adult fiction, and reading it just felt like one big epiphany. The timing of it was perfect because I've been wanting to make a video about Anna and the French Kiss for a while, because I think anyone who's been on BookTube for a while knows about Anna and the French Kiss. And a lot of people love it, and a lot of people have discussed the more concerning elements in it, and that the portrayal of romance is somewhat toxic. And now that I've read the book by Seifert, it feels like the perhaps more concerning elements of Anna and the French Kiss, and particularly the hypocrisy of the main character, suddenly it makes sense. And I think discussing it is important because the tropes Anna and the French Kiss draws on, they are actually quite prominent in a lot of young adult romances, but they are taken to the extreme in some ways, so I think that's why they're noticeable. But now that I'm more aware of what's going on and how young adult romance functions in general, I just feel like I'm never gonna be the same again. So I thought we would look at the model that Seifert outlines and we would apply it to Anna and the French Kiss and just have a good time. The first trope is that innocence and naivete are inexplicably attractive. Seifert writes, teen virgins in contemporary literature are often presented as worthy objects because of their virginity alone. That is, they have few or no qualities that make them attractive beyond their purity and innocence. I think one of the big criticisms of the book is that Anna has no personality beyond being in love with Etienne and being unlike other girls. There is kind of a half-hearted attempt to make her like movies, but it really is just an attempt. For example, we get a scene where Anna and the other characters who are irrelevant go to see an old movie, and Rashmi says, "Ugh, we have to sit through the credits?" And Anna thinks, I read them happily. I love credits. I love everything about movies. And that's basically the depth of her interest. It's boiled down to such simple terms. We, as the reader, we're aware that it's there, but we don't really need it, other than to honestly just reiterate how innocent and how unlike other girls Anna is. She's not like other girls. She does not want to go out and drink. She would rather go see a movie. And I would say it also kind of functions as a pseudo-feminist message within the text. For example, there's one line where she discusses why she wants to be a film critic, and she says that she had a conversation with a male film critic, and he said he once bragged about how there hadn't been a respectable female critic since Pauline Kael because women are too soft. I want to prove that's not true. And this underlines that her interest really isn't developed beyond I love movies and I want to be a female film critic. I feel like this is very much exploiting the trend of girl power, and emphasizes again that she wants to be a critic for the sake of being a critic rather than because the reader feels like there is a genuine passion. Maybe you could argue that this interest in movies is also just a tool to push her further towards Etienne. For example, there's this line where Etienne says, "I don't think anyone who knows you would say it's easy to earn your good review," to Anna. And I feel like this line here implies that Anna is highly coveted by Etienne because she's not easy. She doesn't just immediately like movies, and she doesn't just immediately like boys. She's hard to get. This notion that Anna is so special because she doesn't just throw herself at boys is emphasized again and again and again in the book, particularly through the contrast between her and the other female characters. Anna says, "Most girls laugh too hard at his jokes and find excuses to gently press his arm. Instead, I argue and roll my eyes and act indifferent. And when I touch his arm, I shove it, because that's what friends do. Besides, I have more important things on my mind. Movies." Particularly Amanda and Cherry are a victim of this oversimplification of other girls and this just straight up hatred of other women. Anna describes Cherry and her hair swishes in a vitamin-enriched shampoo commercial curtain. So how are the guys in Paris? Anna, on the other hand, does not care about her appearance. And she does not just care about boys, even though the entire book is Anna caring about boys. For example, she also gets a ring from her father, and she thinks, as if I'm the type of girl who'd wear a heart-shaped ring. And she's so special and so unfeminine in that sense that other girls even want to emulate her. For example, Emily shows up with a stripe in her hair. It's pink and the rest is blonde, so it's not quite like mine, but still. Anna's innocence, which is equated to her not actively pursuing boys, mostly her not caring about her appearance and her rejecting feminine things like heart-shaped rings, puts her on this pedestal. And this is also very noticeable when it comes to Ellie, Etienne's girlfriend. So Anna just wants to stay in for New Year's Eve, obviously. but Ellie's out partying. And when Etienne says that, his voice is sort of glum. Again, emphasizing that Etienne wants a girl who's not like the other girls. Ellie also dresses up as a slutty nurse, which Etienne is teased for. When Anna actually sees the costume, she says, "I don't believe it. Tiny white button-up dress, red crosses across the nipples. Cleavage City." Seyfried really encapsulates this well when she writes, "Romance novels create situations where a protagonist's value is acquired through affiliation with males. Ellie shows her body, and she's looked down upon this. Because obviously girls would never do that for themselves, they would only do it to attract males. So Anna is elevated above Ellie because she doesn't want male attention in the same way that Ellie wants male attention. And all of Ellie's slutty, amoral behavior is also linked with other negative character traits. She's seen to ditch Rashmi, one of her best friends. She doesn't really support Etienne in the way he needs to be supported when his mother is going through cancer, which Anna does. She's not really listening to him in the scenes we see him in. And this is a very concerning pattern in young adult romance. Seyfried points out it's not explicitly stated that female sexuality is bad, but a lot of the time non-virgin characters have the negative characteristics, whereas the virgin characters happen to have all the good characteristics. I do have to say that in some ways Anna and the French kiss doesn't fully fit this trope, because Anna is seen to experience sexual attraction before meeting Etienne. She likes Toph, the guy back in the US, and she dated Matt for a while, but they're obviously nothing like Etienne, and I think having those other relationships just makes us aware of how special it is when she is with Etienne. They're all just obstacles to overcome and ways to pass the time before she gets to be with the person she's meant to be with. But overall, she is slightly less innocent than some other YA characters. Think Bella in Twilight and how she has never been interested in any boy before Edward, and all the boys in her high school like her, but she doesn't like any of them. The second trope is that girls need a virginity guardian. And this is seen a lot in young adult fiction where the male character is in charge of controlling the female character's sexuality. In Anna and the French Kiss, Etienne is the one who calls all the shots, basically. They only really have physical intimacy when he initiates it, and he's also often the one to stop because Anna feels like she can't. And for example, in the scene where they kiss for the first time, "If you ask me to kiss you, I will. His fingers stroke the inside of my wrists, and I burst into flames. Kiss me, I say." Even though he's still asking for consent, which is good, obviously, ultimately it was initiated by him, and he's also the one who runs off in the middle of it. When their friends find them. It feels like Anna really completely lacks control over her own interest in him. She verbatim says, "I want to tell him no, but I've never been able to tell him no." And like a lot of the male love interests in young adult fiction, Etienne is more experienced than his romantic counterpart. Etienne isn't just more experienced sexually because he has had a long-term girlfriend and it is implied heavily that they have sex, but also in a lot of other ways. He speaks French, he's been at the school for longer, he can show her around Paris. There's lots of lines like "St. Clair helps me with a Euro situation," or he's detailing the more gruesome aspects of the Rasputin biography he finished this afternoon. He just consistently teaches her things, and it's clear that he knows more about the world than she does. One of my favorite moments in this subcategory is where Anna, the absolute film lover, does not realize that there are cinemas in Paris, and Etienne is the one to show her. He says, "Paris is the film appreciation capital of the world." I stopped dead. You're kidding. These examples are fine, it makes sense in the context of the story, but I would also say that Anna and the French Kiss even goes a little bit further than just he's more experienced. He almost acts as somewhat of a guardian, since there is a complete lack of genuine parental concern or love in Anna's life. It starts with when he's showing her around Paris for the first time at 9 p.m, and they have this interaction. Anna asks, "What is that place? Can we go in?" He says, "It's a museum, and sure, but not tonight. I believe it's closed." "Oh, yeah, of course. I try not to let my disappointment show." Does that not sound like a little kid with their parent like, "Can we go in there?" "No, honey, it's closed another time." And then one of the weirdest moments in the entire book where Anna is eating grapes at lunch and she doesn't know grapes that have like little brown dots on it and she thinks they're dirty, but that's just what Europe is like apparently. Anna thinks, "I hesitate. Would I rather have clean food or his good opinion?" He picks up another grape and smiles. "Open up." I open up. The grape brushes my lower lip as he slides it in. It explodes in my mouth and I am so startled by the juice that I nearly spit. And Is it just me, or are those parallels between a parent not just feeding children, but also introducing them to new food and having that extra level of knowledge that the kid doesn't have? A little bit concerning. Anyway. The third trope that's very important in Anna and the French Kiss is that danger is tempting and sexy. So obviously there's an element of danger in Etienne and Anna's relationship because it's cheating and it could potentially make them lose a friend because Meredith has been in love with Etienne for years, I think. Seifert writes, tempting themselves in highly charged sexual situations but not being able to give in to the desire is a form of erotic pain. Readers vicariously experience this masochism. Readers might easily link masochism with romance, a problematic equation for teens who are just learning sexual scripts. And there's a direct parallel to this idea in the actual book, where Anna is lying in bed with Etienne while Etienne still has a girlfriend, so they can't do anything. And Anna thinks, as usual, I roll over to my edge of the bed. Both of us are stiff and straight, careful not to touch the other person. I must be a masochist to keep putting myself in these situations. I need help. I need to see a shrink or be locked in the padded cell or straitjacket or something. But the danger doesn't just stem from the forbidden element of their friendship. There also even ends up being an element of violence in the story, where Etienne briefly believes that maybe Dave has hurt Anna. He says, I'll kill that bloody... He's already halfway to the stairs before I can yank him back. No. And then at the end of the book he punches Dave. I don't think it's controversial of me to say that violent behavior like this is generally more of a cause of concern and should not be romanticized, but that is exactly what Anna and a lot of other young adult romances do. Seifert writes that the virgin understands that the man whom she loves is sometimes violent, dangerous, or just plain wrong for her, because he's still dating Ellie, but she recognizes that her purity and her essential goodness can change him. Besides, she realizes that destiny has brought them together and she cannot and should not fight fate. And this last sentence here, that she cannot and should not fight fate, is what excuses everything. And this is where we come to the fourth and the most important trope, which is that virgins have destined soulmates. Seifert writes that the characters aren't choosing lustfulness, rather they are fated to it. Even in cases where they know better, characters plunge headfirst into a deep, intimate relationship in spite of the risks. And that's exactly what we see with Anna and Etienne. They have this immediate, undeniable attraction to each other, and they try to be friends, and they try to ignore their feelings, but they simply can't. I mean, think back to the quote where Anna's in bed with him and she thinks, I need to see a shrink or be locked in the padded cell. At another time she says, it's a physical sickness how much I love him. And that is why the book gets away with being so seemingly hypocritical. Most of the hypocrisy in the book stems from Anna's opinions of Meredith, who, like I said, is also in love with Etienne. For example, we get this moment where Anna sees Meredith and she thinks, Meredith has turned into an arm toucher. I don't believe it. In this scene, Anna is criticizing Meredith for being like all the other girls and coming on to Etienne after, at this point, she has shared a bed with him. But Meredith can't touch his arm. And later on in the text, they go to a club, Anna gets very drunk, and I think Josh is the one who says, you guys practically had sex on the dance floor. So Anna criticizes other girls for going after boys, but at times she also actively pursues Etienne, but that behavior is excused and unlike the other girls because they are the right fit for each other and the way they feel about each other is unlike how anyone else feels about them. This hypocrisy also extends to Bridget, who's Anna's friend back in the US, who only exists for this very purpose. Initially, we are meant to hate Bridget because she stole Toph, who Anna almost dated, but Anna is also sort of doing the same thing because Etienne is with Ellie and because she knows that Meredith has liked Etienne for ages. And Anna really takes it to the next level, and she has her first kiss with Etienne during Meredith's football game. Anna thinks Meredith is fantastic, but our attention to organized sports only lasts so long. 15 minutes into it, and Etienne was whispering in my ear and prodding me with lifted brows. It didn't take much convincing. We'll head back in a bit to catch the end. Spoiler alert, they do not catch the end. Then we get their kiss, and Meredith finds them along with all their other friends. But Anna is ultimately forgiven because everyone sees how special their love for each other is. As a result, Anna also forgives Bridget. She says, Bridget couldn't help it. The attraction was there and I wasn't there and they got together and she couldn't help it. And I've blamed her this entire time. made her feel guilty for something beyond her control. Anna realizes that she can't fight her fate anymore and she needs to be with Etienne. And then she realizes that maybe Bridget couldn't fight fate either. So the reason Bridget's behavior is justifiable, and Anna's as well, is because attraction is something that happens to virgins. Anna describes it as a sickness. She's overcome by it. When they're kissing, she says, "My veins throb and my heart explodes. I've never wanted anyone like this before, ever." The purpose of this trope essentially is that even when good virginal characters like Anna or like Bridget, who's very similar to Anna, experience attraction, it is excused because they are a passive agent. They are at the mercy of their attraction, and their sexuality is completely beyond their control. So since the bond between Anna and Etienne is so special, we as the readers are also meant to forgive them. For example, at the end of the book, Etienne admits, "I cheated on Ellie every day. In my mind, I thought of you in ways I shouldn't have. She was nothing compared to you. I never felt this way about anybody before." And he even admits that we weren't physics partners by accident. "I saw the professor assigning lab partners based on where people were sitting, so I leaned forward to borrow a pencil from you so that he'd think we'd sit next to each other. Anna, I wanted to be your partner the first day." So this is another instance where the cheating aspect is really romanticized, and it builds on that idea of them being destined to be together. Etienne knew from the first day, and Anna knew from the first day as well, and that is why the people they hurt and the lies and the cheating and all of that is just a simple obstacle to overcome to get to where they meant to be, which is together. So ultimately, despite their behavior, they get a happily ever after. Though it is briefly threatened because Dave spreads a rumor that he slept with Anna to make Etienne jealous. And then we get a very interesting moment where Anna's just told Etienne that the rumors aren't true and he didn't sleep with Dave. When he opens his eyes again, I can't help but notice how relieved he looks, which it perhaps implies that he would have been disappointed if she'd no longer been a virgin, but because she never actually had sex with Dave, he managed to stay pure. Etienne can forgive her, even though the entire time that they're almost dating, he's still sleeping with his girlfriend. We love a double standard, we really do. Take a shot every time I say Seyfried writes, but Seyfried writes, "The plotlines build until the characters have sex or sex is implied. Only then are the heroines catapulted into lifelong relationships with a heroic lover who will forever protect her and her honor." And that is exactly the ending that Anna gets. "And I promise that I will never leave you." And there's a companion novel where we see their relationship down the line. So it's implied that they will be together for a really long time, if not forever. And that, my dudes, is why Anna can be involved in emotional cheating, physical cheating, lying, hating on other girls, and still have her happy end. She gets to remain good because she's simply a poor virgin who had to give into this fated attraction to her soulmate. There was no way around it. The true love, which according to this model laid out by Seyfried, which is only love that lasts forever, is the love that exists between her and Etienne and is what excuses them. So, you might ask, why is this important? Well, like I said, these tropes perpetuate the idea that romance is synonymous for pain, violence, lying, cheating, and risking valuable friendships, but that all of these actions are excusable if it's for the sake of true love. And true love is only love that lasts forever. If Anna had slept with Dave to make Etienne jealous, or just because she wanted to, she could have been written off as a slut. But because it's only implied that Anna will sleep with Etienne, who's her soulmate, that behavior is all fine, and Anna's not a slut. But in a novel predominantly read by teenagers, and particularly teenage girls, it's potentially dangerous to promote the idea that you can only have sex if it's for true love. That virginity is associated with positive traits, and that you are inevitably going to be a slut if you lose your virginity outside of the confines of lifelong love. Equating virginity to goodness, being desirable, and the only chance you have of finding your soulmate and being worthy of their love puts pressure on girls to remain pure. It links the act of desire and decision to have sex with shame. Since girls should let sex be something that happens to them as passive objects, it negates the idea that having multiple romantic relationships or sex that isn't emotionally charged is inherently wrong, and that is just not an accurate portrayal of life. Some people might meet the love of their lives in high school, lose their virginity to them, and then that's the end of the story for them. Yes, that happens, But I would say it happens far more frequently that people need to date a series of others to find what they want and the person they actually want to be with, if they ever want to be with anyone at all. So even though it's not explicitly stated that losing your virginity is wrong, and no one in the novel is saving themselves for marriage or anything, it essentially boils down to saving yourself for marriage. Contemporary female young adult protagonists at times have the sexual liberty of a Victorian woman. The only correct choice for them is to avoid sex until they are with the man that they will spend the rest of their life with. And even when they do have sex, since it's only with their true love and they waited, they are what Seifert calls a pseudo-virgin. Basically, they can have sex without being called a slut. So while I do hope that the trend will slowly move towards writing more genuinely sex-positive books, with characters that are equal within romantic relationships, and for that to be the norm, I don't know how realistic it is for that to happen in the near future. So I think until then, this is just a really good reminder to read critically. I don't know if this video really fully made sense, but I do highly suggest you read this book. He applies this model to books like The Selection, Match, Delirium, Mare Dyer, The Wolves of Mercy Falls by Maggie Stiefvater, Hush Hush, The Duff. Those are all the somewhat coherent things I have to say, but I just cannot simply end this video without mentioning the fact that it gets on my nerves so much that instead of saying
my mum,
Etienne the entire time says
me mum.
I'm sorry, maybe this is me drawing on stereotypes about British people. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Etienne is meant to be this very posh boy. I'm pretty sure they mentioned that he grew up in London, so I don't know why he sounds like that. So it kind of bothers me that she chose to spell this out phonetically or include slang or whatever, but never does it again. It's just really Stephanie Perkins shoving his accent down your throat.
Etienne is a little bitch and Anna is whiny as fuck, and my favourite character is Cherry's beautiful shampoo commercial hair.